Make sure you pick the right horse. My father said that to me when I was probably 20, 21, before I got married the first time at age 22. I had a special bond with my father, and actually, right after high school, we started to talk, and I think he started to notice that I had potential. What does that mean? Well, he had a family business with a partner, and he probably had no succession. There was no plan for succession at their business, and they had about 350 employees. But my father and his partner were very close. They built something over 30, 40 years, very successful, and a very small executive level leadership. And my dad was probably 95% of that leadership. And while I was in my early 20s, he suggested I go to college, which was not part of our family heritage. I was the first one to go to college and finish college. And I spent 2 years at one college away from our home. And you know what? This isn't for me, man. This college isn't for me, and I'm partying, and I was dating a girl close to home. So I mentioned to my father that I'm going to finish my sophomore year, and then I'm going to go to the Twin Cities and go to a different school and finish up. That was my game plan. It was my escape also. That was my exit plan, because a lot of my buddies were graduating from school, and their dreams were chiropractors, psychologists, medical doctors, lawyers, poli-sci. I mean, everyone had some type of different foundation. My foundation, not knowing, was business. I always wanted to be a businessman, and that came back from my grandfather. My grandfather, who was an immigrant from Italy, would always tell me, Rock, be a businessman. Rock, be a businessman. And that was one-on-one. And I was probably 10. I didn't realize my father was a businessman. I thought my father was a printer. He was actually a printer, but he ended up owning the business. Very specialized what he was doing. So when I was in my early 20s, my grandfather and my father started talking to me about buying a duplex. They wanted me to get out of the house. And as I mentioned, I'm one of 11 kids. And I'm number 5, and there's 8 boys and 3 girls. So we're talking about 1975 or so. And I was lucky because I got through the Vietnam War. I was not drafted. The draft was discontinued in 73. January, I graduated high school in 1973. And I was actually thinking about going into the Air Force with a couple buddies because we had no knowledge of going to college or no money. And my high school was blue collar, more or less. Blue collar. I mean, and I would say lower blue collar. And it's a parochial school. And but I met a lot of different people, a lot of different friends. And I would hitchhike many times to get around because I didn't have my driver's license. The local bus was on strike for like a couple years. So I'd hitchhike to school and everything. You know, so it wasn't that easy. And when you're in St. Paul, there's snow, man. And I played hockey. So I would spend hours and hours away from home, and I'd spend time with other people and their families. They would take me in. Rock, come on over for dinner. We got hockey practice later or during or whatever it was. So I met a lot of different families, and I would see the family dynamics, especially the ones that had older brothers that played hockey. Hockey, South St. Paul was the whole thing, man. We had heroes, and they were only in high school. Okay. So as I aged, once I started working, I was my father's kind of like go-to guy. You know, he was trying to teach me the ropes, teach me business. I didn't really understand if I would eventually have the discussion of buying the business. I didn't have that in my mind. I just thought, wow, I'm going to do the best I can. But then I started seeing, holy shit, this is a big business, man. And we're talking to 3M. 3M was 99% of our business. So we were we were global, man. I didn't realize how big it was. And the profit, I couldn't believe it. So my father more or less said, Rock, Grandpa and I found this duplex. We think you should buy it. I said, Dad, I don't have any money. Well, how much do you have? Then we started talking about how much I had. And I was dating a woman, a high school sweetheart at the time. And she had a few bucks. And then the discussion was combine the dollars and buy this duplex. And we could assume the interest rate at that time. And it was very high. It was like in the teens back in, I believe it was Carter's days. And it was a duplex. And the family that was selling had a couple kids. They outgrew the duplex. And my parents, or I should say my dad and my grandpa, convinced me to buy it with my girlfriend at the time. It did not go well with the girlfriend's parents. And by the way, the parents were divorced. Number one, red flag. Number two, red flag, we were fighting all the time. And I was just working. And I was trying to build my own career. At the same time, I'm going to college. At the same time, I'm a workaholic. We had 3 shifts. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when I think of Father's Day, I'm thinking about the warnings that I received from my father about getting married to a woman that's parents were divorced in the 70s. In the 70s, that was not common. So, and that was a no-no in our family. Divorce was a no-no. I mean, you talk about parents that had 11 kids, foundations that there's no divorces in our family, but the next generations were becoming divorced kids of divorced parents. But that wasn't common in my family. I disregarded it. Like, it's never going to happen. They suffered so much that they're never going to do this. They're never going to go through a divorce because it's just too difficult. They went through it. It's a sad thing. So I remember my father and I and my mother were invited to my girlfriend's fiancé father's house. And he worked for a public company, was an engineer, like manufacturing director. He was a big shot. And he was so proud of his home. He built his home. See, we weren't accustomed to building homes. And, we were like, we buy things, we add value, and that's it. We don't build homes and show off and all that. Well, her dad at the time was still working, and he was very proud of his background. But my father was an entrepreneur through and through. He knew that it always comes to an end working for a public company because we work with 3M and, there's a lot of changes, who's kissing the wrong ass and so on. So at the end of the day, I remember going for dinner and her father was showing off all his patents. He had 21 patents and they were all like trophies on the wall. And I'm like, oh, wow, a patent here, a patent there. And I'm thinking, wow, this guy's really accomplished a lot. My parents walked out at her like, oh man, Rock, good luck, man. And my father, back in those traditional days, it was the wife or the bride takes care of the cost of the wedding. That was the deal. My dad had no participation, didn't want to have anything to do with it, the wedding. And in fact, I think he was just happy that I was settling down. I had a duplex. We eventually bought it together. And her parents weren't happy about it because we weren't married and we commingled. We commingled finance before we got married. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. And that's a no-no for you listening to me. So eventually what happened was we ended up getting married and I took the role of my father, the workaholic, the businessman. I'm proud. I'm wearing suits every day, ties every day. I was showing the part. I was even dressing like my father. That was our uniform, leadership. And I wasn't in that position, but I respected it. I respected my father. I respected the people. I respected 3M. I respected everybody. And his partner was 20 years older than my dad, at least. I'd pick him at the airport because he was a Florida guy and, going back and forth. He was an investor, but he owned majority of the business. And I respected him because my dad respected him. It was back in the day where it's kind of like honor and respect people. And it's called obedience. You obey until the time comes when you get fucked over. So why am I going through this? I'm going through this because there's red flags during my foundation of shifting from a young adult to a responsible, accountable adult. I had mortgage. I had a family. I had a wife. And I was trying to get ahead. And I'm still going to college. So I'm never around. And at that time, we had 3 shifts, 350 employees. I more or less replaced my father. And I wasn't paid that well at the beginning. Later on, my father started respecting my value, my input, and my decision making. And I was all in, man. I was all in because eventually we started talking about me buying the business. Overall, this is supposed to be about Father's Day and what I respected about my father and the red flags that I didn't see. I should say that I didn't pay attention to. I would say to me, it'll never happen to me. Divorce will never happen to me because I'm not cheating. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not abusive. And did I care? You damn right I cared. And did I pick the right horse? I thought I did. I picked a woman that I was attracted to, that I thought respected me, admired me, loved me. And I realized later, much, much later, 12 years later, that she hated me. I could laugh now, but I was, oh my God, I didn't see it coming, man. That's what I say at that time. Now when I look back, I go, holy shit, I should have never married her. However, I got 3 great kids, and God had a plan for me, and it just wasn't to be married. And I've been divorced from her now for almost 40 years, and I'm on YouTube talking about it, going back 40 years, 50-year career. I started my career in 1975. I got 50 years in business, and I went through shit, man. I went through a lot of shit. But there's certain things I didn't give up on. I didn't give up on my kids, even though it was easy. In fact, I had a discussion with my father during my divorce. He saw the pain that was in me. And he even said, you know, Rock, because visitation, it was about 12 months before, from start to business, or start September, divorced in September the following year. And that was a fast divorce. We even went to trial, which was a must at the time because a lot was involved, including my father's business. Thank God I had no ownership. So this session basically is about understanding the foundations of both parties. And I've said this in other discussions. Talk about the family dynamics. Talk about religion, how you're going to bring up the kids. Talk about dreams. What are your dreams? Are they individual dreams? Or are they couples' dreams? Talk about politics. Yes, talk about politics. Because when I look back at my first marriage, I look at the family and it was all blue collar, Democratic. Their discussions around the table were how they received benefits for not working. I was like, to me in our family, unemployment was a fucking mortal sin. Yes, it was a sin. I've never filed for unemployment. Have I had times when I thought, oh, I wonder if I could get unemployment for this? Yeah, I thought about that. Never got it. Never got to that point. I thought, as a strategist and a guy that had alimony and child support, you're damn right. I was trying to figure out every way I could to make a buck. Not only make a buck, to save a buck. I had no clue what it would take to raise 3 kids as a single parent. I had no clue. I was financially obligated for the 3 kids and alimony for close to 20 years with the kids and an ex-wife. And believe me, it'd still be going on today if I didn't take action. So going back to my father, he told me during my divorce, in so many words, he disowned me because he thought if you can't take care of your own family, how are you going to take care of the business and the employees? Because in my world, I was raised that the employees come first, not the family, the employees. So I'm giving these videos just to let you know that I had a lot of betrayal. An ex-wife, the courts, they're not pro-dads. They're pro-alimony and child support. Make sure you fucking pay. Attorneys, they don't give a shit. They just want to bill and make sure you pay. Home, gone. I took a risk by saying you could have all these hard assets. I'll take the long-term compound assets. And that came from my college roommates that went through divorce. Said, Rock, give them everything that doesn't appreciate. You keep your retirement funds. That's the key. And guess what? That worked out. It wasn't easy. Even though Father's Day is coming up, my father's going to be 100 in February. I used to idolize my father. Used to. Now I just respect him as a man. I worked with my father 17 years. He gave me a lot of opportunities. I respect that. But a lot of our relationship was what I would call conditional. It's transactional. I didn't want that to happen to my kids. I had no support from their mother. Zero. In fact, 40 years of fuck you, Rock. And my kids really don't know the whole story. They were all under 12. But I believe they're going through their relationship skills now. They're parenting. I have grandchildren. I'm speaking my mind. Why? Because I can. I can speak my mind. Because I'm talking about the truth. And I'm trying to help other dads or the breadwinners. I know there's a lot of men that are called deadbeat dads by the ex-wife. But fuck you. Nobody knows what it is. As a father with the traditional background that I got to raise my kids as a single parent, joint custody, fuck you. I know men that took care of their kids, brought their daughters in and sons in because the ex-wife turned to drugs or alcohol or became a hoe, whatever it is. But I believe in karma. And that's the reason why I'm talking my truth now, because nobody could touch me anymore. No one. I'm giving my story. It's not going to be in a fucking book. My book, my memoir is, oh, so nice. So nice. Rock got through this. No, this is the real deal, man. You too gave me the fucking right to say what I want to say. And I don't give a shit how pissed people are because I kept this all to myself, including my kids. But now they're in their late 40s. Now they're seeing the truth. I go to my high school reunions and I'm like, fucking A, man. And by the way, high school reunions, we got 50, is it 50 years? Yeah, it's 50 years. In 73, I went to it really proud. I was giving out my book. Who didn't show? My ex-wife. Why? Embarrassment. The truth came out. Here it is. And it's not even dirty shit. It's just the truth. But many people have told me, Rock, I know. People that know how difficult it is, marriage, how difficult it is. And I'm saying I'm one of the fortunate ones. I'm fortunate because I had a strong religion. I had enough money to take care of the fucking problems. But I raised the kids through education, get educated, be a good person, don't go get in trouble, have a faith, don't give up, keep going. And they did it. And they bettered their life over my life, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Each generation should have a better life. I'm more worried about my grandchildren. Why? They all pick different spouses that have different foundations. I'm out of it. I'm just going to sit there and observe. It's not my problem. Good luck. I went through my shit. My parents weren't perfect. And as I mentioned before, I idolized my father. But the older I got, I realized, oh my God, I've been a victim more than once. I've been taken advantage of. I bought into that fucking Kool-Aid. Not anymore. I'm keeping my distance from toxic people, including brothers and sisters, relatives. I'm really shrinking my core family, friends. I've even modified my religious beliefs because of the betrayal that the Catholic Church has done to me and to others. I see it. Doge sees it. It's sad, man. It's sad. So I'm just letting you know, I talked about my grandparents, talked about my parents. Now my mother, just to finish up with my mother, I had none of this with my mother because nothing was conditional with my mother. My mother was all unconditional. My mother would always give me little owls. I never knew what those meant. You know, she'd be junking, I call it junking. She'd be junking and she'd always pick up something at the Goodwill or some type of store. And it was always little owls. Why am I looking? I'm looking to see if I got any owls in my car. And you know what those owls meant? I had to look, what is a symbolic of an owl? And she'd say about my eyes. I had her eyes, by the way, hazel, and they turned blue. But the symbol of an owl is wisdom. She knew I was wise, but she also knew I was trouble because I was, in a way, in direct competition with my father. And that's what I learned later in life, that my dad looked at me as he couldn't push me around. I did things on my own. I became independent. He didn't like that. He still doesn't like it. But our relationship is very, what should I say, isolated. Isolated to a few things. We talk football, we talk hockey, talk baseball, talk about kids, but we never go back. Never go back. And I made a lot of moves, good moves, man, with people that love me. So as I mentioned, the book, They Named You Right, the memoir, it's all in there. And my dad didn't, that came out in 2022. I was in Italy at the time. My father and I talked about the book. I sent him the first printed book. And he was emotional about it. And he said, you know, Rock, I didn't realize you went through all this. But I am so proud that you did. Well, what the fuck? He taught me how to be an asshole many times. Or tough-headed. Ah, yeah. And I used the same strategy on him. He's always said, Rock, you're too generous. You're too generous. You know why he says I'm too generous? Because I'm willing to give. He's not willing to give. It's always conditional. It's always conditional. And I don't care anymore. But I didn't have 11 kids. But now I realize my kids have bettered their life because of what I taught them. I don't know what their mother taught them. I don't know. I just know what I see. And I'm proud of my kids because they picked it up. They picked up education. They picked up relationships. They're generous kids. And they're independent. They're independent. So that's what it was like bringing up my kids as a divorced single person. And I was single between the first marriage and the second marriage for 22 years. So the kids were long gone. In fact, maybe all three of them were married before I got married the second time. So I just want to let you know that, man, make sure you pick the right horse. And maybe that's what I should talk about, the criteria of the first wife was definitely, high school sweetheart, probably didn't know any better. I thought she was a good girl. And I go back to the last 3 L's that I mentioned before. I was lustful at 21, 22 years old. I thought I was in love. And I thought I was loved. And then it turned out to be 1 + 1 = litigation. But I became my own person. And that's what's good about YouTube. I could say what I want. I'm not interrupted. I just do what I say. No matter what anybody thinks, I don't care. You know why? Because this is my story. This is how I felt. This is my opinion. These are the facts. Why don't people challenge me on this shit? Because they know the truth. Do they talk behind my back? Oh, fucking yeah. It's still going on. I don't want to be the king. I don't need to be the king. My dad needed to be the king. My grandfather was the king. But when I realized that it was my mom, wasn't the queen, she was the king. And her family of love, of generosity, of sharing, sacrifice, respect. I see disrespect at times from my own kids. And I'll tell you, I'm not gonna take that shit. They don't know what I went through, kicking them in the ass to do what's right. And guess what? Some obey, some don't, and it's their life. Here's another thing my father used to say. Get in close. You ready? If you're looking for trouble, you'll find it. You want marriage, or you're looking for trouble? Because you'll find it. God bless you. I'll talk to you again very soon.